Good afternoon to you. It's now 5:07 News Talk 105.9 WMAL, where we're making sense of the news. You can join us today, 888-630-9625, 888-630-WMAL. The Secret Service Director, Kim Cheatle, not giving any useful answers today, very few at least, on how the hell Donald Trump was almost assassinated now 2 weekends ago. More than enough time to dig into this and give us some preliminary answers at least.
It is unfathomable that a 20-year-old on the radar of Secret Service and local law enforcement before President Trump went on stage was able to climb onto the roof of a building with a rifle and fire off multiple rounds before he was neutralized. Was Mr. Crooks acting alone?
Again, I would have to refer you to the FBI's investigation.
Was he just a lone gunman?
I would have to refer you to the FBI's investigation for motive.
A useless woman, and all the more reason why she needs to resign. Joining us now, Sean Davis, CEO and co-founder of The Federalist, who's on the phone and watching all of this really closely. Sean, good to have you with us, sir.
Good to be with you. Thank you for having me.
What do you make of Kim Cheatle's awful testimony today?
So I've been in politics, involved in it or covering it for almost 25 years now. I spent a lot of time on the Hill, sometime in the Senate as a chief investigator for Tom Coburn. In my entire life, I have never seen a witness this comically awful. I've never seen anything like it. I don't know how she sleeps at night. I don't know how she gets up in the morning and goes to work. It was obscene what she did. And honestly, the idea that she can resign and have this be over, or be fired and have this be over, I think is nuts. She needs to be in prison.
Yeah, I mean, the shooter here is not alive to be facing charges. It's not like some investigation that's going to result in criminal charges would be upset by her sharing details. Everybody wants to know answers to really basic questions, and she's refusing to give anything, Sean.
Well, right. And what I found so dishonest about it is, there were some questions that she probably doesn't know, which is fair.
Right.
It was her job to protect the president, not, prosecute the person who shot him. But she refused to answer basic questions about things that happened beforehand that she was ostensibly in charge of and maybe even approved of. For example, how many agents did you have there?
Right.
There's no reason on earth why she couldn't answer that. And the idea that somehow she needs a 60-day long investigation by Chris freaking Wray to tell us who signed off on not giving them the counter snipers or covering that rooftop is absolutely absurd. Honestly, I wish they would have called the hearing short today, found her in contempt, and ordered the sergeant-at-arms to just take her to custody then.
Yeah. That would have been a better outcome than what we got. So Congressman Pete Sessions today asked her about whether or not anyone at the Secret Service has been disciplined so far. And she said, not yet. It's pending the results of an investigation, which is staggering because a man has been killed at a Secret Service protected event. Several Americans have been wounded, to include the former president of the United States and now what it looks like future president of the United States. How do they not at least place Secret Service officials on an administrative leave, Sean Davis? Does that mean that more people are imperiled now today as a result of this?
Yeah, I don't know how you could come to any other conclusion other than that if you're a protectee of the Secret Service right now, you should be getting on your knees and praying to God that he will save you or maybe just send you a new security detail. I don't understand how anyone could have any confidence in their ability to do anything other than sit around and wait for a protectee to get shot.
It's truly awful. And now we're just finding out more and more information, to the extent that we get any, about how it looks like, according to Senator Ron Johnson, that local law enforcement and the Secret Service were not really in any sort of meaningful communication with each other, as a very real threat was emerging against President Trump. And that just demonstrates levels of incompetence that I didn't even think our government was capable of.
I know. It's something when these people are able to somehow fall short of already low expectations. You know, it was interesting watching the rhetorical sleight of hand over the weekend from the Secret Service. First off, they just straight up lied when they claimed that they never denied the resources that Trump's detail wanted. That was a lie. And then they started leaking. It's interesting. She can't answer questions to Congress, but she and her slimy little friends over there can leak to the media and say, oh, it wasn't our responsibility to guard the perimeter. That was outside the perimeter, and that was the responsibility of local officials. Well, first off, who put it outside the perimeter? We saw that picture. It looked like Pac-Man or a pizza with a couple slices taken out of it. Who decided to keep that building and that rooftop out of the perimeter, number one? And then number two, it doesn't matter who was delegated to do that. The protection of former and potentially future presidents and current presidents is the responsibility of the Secret Service. They don't just get to work with others and then kick the can down the road and say, oh, no, well, we said that local law enforcement was going to do that and they're responsible. That's not actually how responsibility works, and I found it absolutely infuriating to watch this idiot woman, at best, say, oh, I take responsibility, I'm accountable. You're clearly not, because if there's no changes after you nearly sent the country into civil war, which is what was going to happen if that bullet had been a centimeter to the right, you're not taking responsibility for anything. You're just mouthing words.
Yeah, it was this answer that she gave to ABC that I think in the most crystal clear possible way demonstrated that she is a liar. Take a listen to this.
Should that roof have been secure, period?
That building in particular has a sloped roof at its highest point. And so, there's a safety factor that would be considered there, that we wouldn't want to put somebody up on a sloped roof. And so, the decision was made to secure the building from inside.
I think to any reasonable listener or observer of that clip, you conclude right away that you're not dealing with an honest person here, Sean.
No. Also, notice put aside the absurd lie that the roof was too slopey. I've done a little bit of construction in my time. That was a 212 roof, like 2 inches of rise for every 12 inches of run. You could probably set a marble on it and it wouldn't fall off.
I had this thought, every year I've got to put up Christmas lights and I got to stand on a sloped roof. And my roof is much more sloped and I'm in a lot more peril. My wife's constantly freaking out about it. But I'm telling you, the Secret Service can handle it. I'm confident of that.
Yeah, but the other slimy wording that I noticed was the decision was made. Oh, really? By whom? Because decisions don't just make themselves. The passive language there, the decision was made.
Yes.
By whom, Kimmy? Who made the decision?
That came up today in the hearing. One of the lawmakers asked her who was responsible for signing off on this, on the final plan for the July 13th Butler, Pennsylvania event. Who's ultimately responsible for signing off on the security plan? And she kept on obfuscating the answer to that question. She was like, well, lots of people sign off on all sorts of elements. In other words, responsibility is so diffuse that nobody can be held accountable, Sean Davis.
Yeah, it's the thing when everybody's responsible, nobody is. And that's a wonderful excuse used by incompetent bureaucrats everywhere. I will say, before the hearing today, I have gone back and forth between thinking this was just typical incompetence cascading and resulting in catastrophe, or whether this was what I would call strategic incompetence, meant to provide a veneer of plausible deniability when the thing that they actually wanted to happen happened. And after watching her performance today, I actually have a pretty difficult time believing it was just garden variety incompetence. Her intransigence, her arrogance, her smugness, watching that, seeing the total lack of remorse, makes me wonder, did she actually want what happened to happen?
It's just awful to contemplate. I do think that one of the likely scenarios here is that the Biden administration has become very comfortable with the idea that the only people worth protecting are Joe Biden and his allies, and that everyone else should not be dignified with meaningful protection. That includes Donald Trump, who they begrudgingly give protection to as a former president of the United States, and Robert F. Kennedy Jr., who they refused to give protection to because they didn't want to make it seem like he was a legitimate political candidate, presidential candidate, by giving him Secret Service. And they did it for the, I think, just completely shallow reasons, Sean Davis.
Oh, yeah. The RFK thing, what I found so ridiculous. The man's father was assassinated, probably by his own government. His uncle was assassinated, probably by his own government. And then they had the audacity to look at him polling at 10, 15%, say, nah, of all the people on earth who might need it, you definitely don't.
Yeah.
It's such a middle finger. It's such an FU to the people in this country. And I don't think everyone is fully aware of just what a mob of complete corrupt gangsters we have running our government right now, but maybe more are aware after having watched the events of the last 10 days.
Yeah, I think so many people are attuned to that suspicion nowadays, which is a good and healthy impulse in light of all of the ways we've been betrayed by our own government. Hey, let me ask you additionally about betrayal in the form of the coup against Joe Biden that we're all witnessing right now. Yesterday, that letter being put out under Joe Biden's name with Joe Biden's signature affixed to it, an underline added for emphasis. What do you make of what just happened in the Democrat nomination process and what's coming next?
Yeah, I find it fascinating that the party that's been screeching nonstop about democracy for the past 4 years just decided that all those millions of people who voted for their nominee don't get a say. Mm-hmm. They kick this guy to the curb, and they're just going to pick a new nominee. So that alone I find just amazing. I will say I'm pretty disturbed that we've actually not seen any sight of Biden now for 4 or 5 days. He's allegedly, he was sick. They rushed him out of Las Vegas. No one's seen him since. He drops out by Twitter. Like, if you've ever been broken up with by text, I think we found the thing that's even more ridiculous and disrespectful, and it's dropping out of a presidential race by tweet. We don't know where he is. There's no proof of life. It appears that we just had a meeting between the Israeli prime minister and the president canceled. I'd kind of like to know what the heck's going on. Is Biden okay? And if he is, why do we not have a proof of life from someone who we're told of his own volition dropped out of the presidential race?
Yeah, there's still, I think over the course of the last hour or so, the White House is still using his Twitter account to express all sorts of statements, but not a single word or even a photo of President Biden. Under normal circumstances, if a major presidential event had occurred, like the one we just saw yesterday, which is Biden dropping out of the race, there would be a photograph of him just signing the paper. That's the kind of basic thing you do to keep an inventory of history, and nothing, Sean Davis.
Nothing. Where's the White House pool? Where's the pooler who's supposed to know what's going on? We're told he has COVID. Maybe. I don't know. I'm kind of at the point where I just assume every single thing we're being told by this government is a lie. And at this point, I kind of shudder to think about what our enemies and what our allies around the world are thinking watching this display of nonsense happen in our country.
Yeah. And so Kamala Harris now is supposed to be the nominee, although that's a subject of some debate because not the entire left has rallied behind her. Even AOC was saying this past week that there's plenty of party elders around her and donors around her who are not on board with Kamala Harris. What do you make of her move now to try and get the party to back her for president?
Yeah, it's been interesting. And then I'll tell you, having just watched a party kick their own president to the curb after 4 years, I wouldn't be at all surprised to watch them kick their vice president to the curb in 4 weeks when they have the convention. They do have some financial and logistical difficulties if they go with anyone other than Harris, because it means all that money that Biden and Harris collected can't be immediately redirected towards that new ticket.
Right.
With Harris on there, they're allowed to do that. There's some issues with coordination. I think they can give a bunch to DNC, but they stand to lose hundreds of millions of dollars if it's anyone but her or Biden. The problem for them is that she might be the one person in the country who is less popular than Joe Biden is right now. People don't like her. It's why she had to drop out of the presidential race as a Democrat last time before there was a single vote cast in a primary. She's not particularly likable. She's pretty poor at politics. She's absolutely cringeworthy on camera. And I honestly don't know what they were thinking when they all, or at least some of them, decided that they were going to line up behind her.
Yeah. And they're going to have to run a basement campaign with her. If she's actually the nominee, there's no way they can let her stand in front of voters and have natural human conversations with them. That never goes well. Sean Davis, thank you from The Federalist for your vigilance on all of these issues and your time today. Good to talk to you, sir. All right, let's go to the phones. Rhodey's calling in from Charlestown, West Virginia, now line 2. Rhodey, good afternoon, sir.
Hey, Vince, how you doing today?
Good. What's on your mind, Rhodey?
Well, all these talking about the security drops and the Secret Service lapses in their plan and everything. Yeah. The real question is, how is a 20-year-old man able to pre-plan, scout out, and then find the exact spot that there was no security available to stop him? That's an impossibility.
It's a great question. Well, I'm thinking about it. I saw your question on the on our board here, and I was trying to think about some of the answers here ahead of it. And here's one possibility. One is that ahead of these events, the Secret Service is going to erect some physical barriers to establish what their perimeter is. And if you go and you scout out the location and you see that there's a building outside of that physical perimeter, you may assume, well, maybe this is a good vantage point. We've got these reports that the gunman bunked the gun. Lots of lawmakers now seeming to indicate that the gun itself was stored, presumably near or on the roof that he began shooting from. And he got there hours earlier. He brought a rangefinder with him through the magnetometers and was apparently trying to assess distances using it. That's what you can assume from that. And the other piece is that he apparently flew a drone that he had. He had his own drone that he flew earlier in the day, once again, to presumably scout out the location. So the whole thing is crazy that even took place. Go ahead.
About that though, Vince?
Yeah.
If you remember, the Secret Service said that the gentleman who was supposed to be stationed there called off that day. So
that the gentleman who would have been on the roof, is that what you're saying?
Yes. Yeah. That there's reports that the guy called off that day, that there was supposed to be somebody there.
That's okay. That particular element's news to me. I didn't realize that particular thing. We saw some reports that there were people. Oh, they were in the building. They were just downstairs, or they were in an adjoining building on a second floor, but they didn't, because the angle was too extreme. They didn't have sight on the roof. But the idea that roof would be open and unobserved is madness.
Right. And you mentioned the first argument was that they said about the pitch of the roof.
Yeah.
Then when that question was rebutted to her, she then later stated, "Oh, well, there was supposed to be somebody there, but they called off."
Kim Cheatle said that?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Was that in today's testimony? She said that particular thing that somebody had.
No, that was an interview. That was an interview last week.
All right, I'm gonna look for that detail, and I'll follow up with it. Rhodey, thank you. It's a great question though. How does a 20-year-old outmaneuver the $8 billion agency tasked with protecting these guys, in particular, in this case, Donald Trump? It just doesn't add up. It is crazy. Brody, thank you. Coming up, more details on what we're learning and the coup against Joe Biden, the man who hasn't been seen in public we're now approaching a week. Good afternoon to you. It's 5:36 now. News Talk 105.9 WMAL, where we're making sense of the news. You can join us, as always, at 888-630-9625. 888-630-WMAL. What a wild Sunday that was. What a wild Sunday. I was at my pool, my community pool, where my family likes to be. We were cleaning up from events from the prior day. There was a big swim meet we had. All the kids were out there swimming. My daughter did great, by the way. First place in both of her events. We were so proud of her. She'd been working so hard at this. For years now, she's been plugging away. She's 10 years old, and she swam backstroke in the individual medley and placed first in both events. So she got the gold medal in both of those events. I was super proud of her. She was overwhelmed with emotion doing it. So that was a cool thing. So we were cleaning up Sunday. We were cleaning up some of the elements of that. And all of a sudden I started hearing somebody else at the pool freaking out. Oh, my God. Like she was staring at her phone. What's going on? Joe Biden has dropped out of the race, she said. Now, I wasn't quite as surprised as she was. I was having talked about this for years. There's a clip of me, by the way, somewhere. My father reminded me of this. He said, you said on Special Report that this guy is not running. I guess I had done this. Do you remember this, Corey? I don't know when this was. I said, did you hear that guy? There's no way he's going to be nominated. I can't find the clip, so if anybody finds it, please let me know. But, yeah, he's out. He's out. I don't know if he knows it, but according to the letter that was signed by him, or at least his signature was affixed to it, he's out of the race. So that was wild to see that play out. So I was able to join our friend Larry O'Connor yesterday on the air on WMAL, and we talked about this for a little bit. And as I was joining him, I jotted down a couple of notes because I wanted to make sure to say something worth hearing yesterday. So one of the things that is worth reiterating is, what was the payoff to the Biden family? What kind of money did they get to get them out of this? That seems critical. What kind of extortion took place? What kind of golden parachutes are in store for the Bidens as they exit this race? Have you noticed that Jill had nothing to say about all of this? Hunter released a statement. It was like, I love my dad. He's the greatest. Frank Biden apparently told the press that he's grateful to be able to spend whatever time Joe has left with him. Whatever time he has left? Why do you got to say it like that? Unless things are really dire.
Here's what he told us. He said, I'm incredibly proud of my brother. Selfishly, I will have him back to enjoy whatever time we have left.
What? Holy cow. And then Jill, all she did was she tweeted a couple of emojis out, just heart emojis. That's it. Just alongside the letter with Joe Biden's signature on it, which means she's got a lot more to say, but she can't say it. She can't say it. Yeah. So some very weird stuff going on with Joe as they eject him from the race. And Kamala, she went off to Delaware today to meet with her campaign team, which was Joe Biden's campaign team until like 12 hours ago. Now it's Kamala's campaign team. She was walking around inside of this space today. The video that we've seen, she's not even talking. She's like, hi, and she just walks through the room. They've replaced all of the signage. Biden's name is nowhere to be found. It's all of a sudden it's Kamala for president or Harris for president, whatever they're using. And there's somebody already hung up a California flag on the wall as if this has been her campaign all along. Instantly, they just black bagged the old guy, threw him out the window, and here's Kamala, and they pretend like nothing changed. Full steam ahead with Kamala Harris. That's the way these guys operate. And then we saw the report today that Nancy Pelosi was done begging Joe. She was ready to move into the compulsion stage. We've done the easy way. Now we're about to start the hard way. One more thing on all of this. The New York Post has some new reporting out during our program today. Headline, top Democrats threatened to forcibly remove Biden from office unless he resigned, set him up to fail at Trump debate. How about that? Operatives at the very highest levels of the Democrat Party threatened Joe Biden with forcibly removing him from office unless he stepped down, sources told the New York Post. The well-orchestrated palace coup to stop the faltering president seeking re-election has been in place for weeks, but stubborn Biden fought against it every step of the way, a source close to the Biden family told the Post Monday. The insider also made clear the anger, paranoia, and frustration Biden displayed as the party elite circled around him and piled on the pressure. Part of the elaborate strategy to remove Biden from the race, as he announced in a shock letter posted on X Sunday, was allowing him to debate Republican candidate Donald Trump last month on live TV in Atlanta. During the car crash 90-minute debate, Biden appeared confused, slack-jawed, and at one point he froze up, with his shocking performance turning the tide against him. Quote, that debate was a setup to convince Democrats that he couldn't run for president, a source close to the Biden family told the Post Monday. As calls for him to bow out mounted, Biden insisted he would continue, but party bigwigs threatened to invoke the 25th Amendment to the U.S. Constitution. The amendment allows for the vice president and members of the cabinet to declare that he's unfit to serve and force him to step down, the source added. The White House and representatives from the DNC did not immediately respond to the Post's request for comment. So the Post is saying, hey, the debate was a part of the setup. Now, I've always been pretty convinced that the debate was at the very least a tire-kicking exercise. Schedule it early. If Joe Biden is non-compos menace, we get rid of him. If he's going to be a liability for us to hold on to permanent power, let's do the debate early enough that we can eject him and then force somebody else down the throat of the Democrats across the country who voted for Biden in a rigged primary. Just remarkable. All right, let's go to the phones. We got a lot of people calling in. Oh, we just lost the person I was about to go to. Jeannie, if you can hear my voice, please call us back. Good old Jeannie had something to share from Butler, Pennsylvania. She has an insider perspective on what happened there, which I'm looking forward to. Let me take Tony in West Virginia, line 7. Tony, good afternoon, sir. You're on the Vince Coglianese Show.
Vince, good afternoon. How are you?
I'm doing well. What's on your mind, sir?
Well, I was kind of curious. You know, I'll be honest with you. This is the first time I've ever been called into a show. It's a pleasure to talk to you. I listen to you all the time.
Thank you.
Some unique insights. I was curious. You know, I may have missed it during the course of the conversation today with Dan, yourself, or whomever, but I have yet to hear anybody talk about the forensic analysis that's been done on the audio from the mic in front of Trump. regarding the gunshots. There have been several videos that have been put out, if you will, that analyze at a forensic level the audio from the gunshots, and it's clear, and the conclusion a lot of these folks are coming to is that it's clear that there are 3 unique weapons that are being used.
Yes.
There are 3 shots initially. Maybe this is not news to everybody, but it's certainly news to me. The first 3 shots ring out. Is clearly a distinct sound, followed by a brief delay with 5 shots in rapid succession with a final shot. Right, that most people suspect is probably the sniper taking out whomever it was that was shooting. Right.
Right.
And I'm just curious: is anybody talking about this?
Well, we know that there were at least 3 weapons discharged. We do know that for a fact. So the 3 weapons that would have been discharged were the shooter, Thomas Crooks, firing his AR-15. We additionally know that a Secret Service counter sniper fired what we're told is the kill shot. We're told it was 1 bullet, and that he successfully struck Crooks through the face, killing him. And then the third gun that was fired was a local police counter sniper team fired and missed Thomas Crooks. That's at least the reports that we've seen so far, Tony.
5 times. The unique thing is that if you in the analysis, you can do an analysis with regards to when you hear the sonic boom, if you will, from the bullet passing the mic
right
to the report, and they can get accurate distances. Making some assumptions regarding the grain of the bullet and that sort of thing, right? And it turns out the first 3 are equal distance to the next 6, what they presume is the counter snipers, right? And then with a slight delay, and then the final bullet, right? So it's obvious that the final shot is, much further away, but 8 shots came from the same distance?
All 8 shots. All of the sounds you're saying, all of the gunshot sounds, you're saying that it's very unlikely that it was just Thomas Crooks.
That's right.
Right. Yeah. Well, we'll see. I guess I'm hoping that the truth comes out on all of this, Tony. We keep trying to dig up whatever facts we can. I know that there are a bunch of people who have been clinging to a second shooter theory. I don't know if that's true. I haven't seen evidence to support that yet, but I do see that we know of at least 3 guns that have been confirmed to have been discharged. That's at least what we know right now.
Have you seen any of these, any of this analysis, Vince?
The forensic analysis?
Yeah.
I'm
getting a sense of it. Go ahead.
Yeah, I've seen people sharing all sorts of things on social media. As usual, sometimes it's a little difficult to establish what's true or not.
Right on.
All right, Tony, thank you for calling, and I appreciate that, and I appreciate you listening.
Well, thank you, Vince.
Good to talk to you today. But trust me, we'll keep our eyes open on this. A lot of smart people. The reality, of course, based on what Tony's talking about here, is that most of the good information that we've obtained not from the Secret Service, not from local police, but instead from social media, from people sharing videos of them pointing to the shooter on the roof. The best evidence is the stuff that we've seen on social media in many cases. So I never rule that out, ever. Let's see here. Robert in Oregon calling in line 5. Robert, good afternoon, sir. You're on the Vince Coglianese Show.
Hey, Vince. Great show today. I love the detail and all the information. But there's a question I haven't heard yet, and I'm going to use the term they. We're not sure if it's the same they, and it might be just one person, but if they would have succeeded in taking Trump out and assassinating him, then would they have asked Biden to step down, or would he still be the candidate? That's my question.
It's a great question, and I don't think so. I think if the shooter had successfully assassinated President Trump, and thank God he didn't, then I don't think Biden steps down. The calculus behind ejecting Biden is that he's just down in the polls. That's it. They don't care that he has any sort of senility or that he's barely functioning. That's not the issue. The issue is that he's behind Trump. And if Trump were to be eliminated from this race by virtue of an assassin's bullet, I think it's very likely Biden's still in this thing, still in this race. So that's the answer, I think, to that question, Robert.
changes the whole thought, doesn't it? It's just that little miracle that, like the one pastor said, the millimeter miracle changed it all,
Yeah.
So they had to jump to the next level if they are and they are all in cahoots. But,
yeah, I'm not in a position to attribute the same they to both of these equations at all. But I will say that had that assassin's bullet taken out Trump, it's very likely that Biden would not have been forced out of this race by the left. Thank you, Robert. It's a provocative call to explore it. Jeannie's from Frederick calling back in now, line 8. Jeannie, good afternoon. You're on the Vince Coglianese Show.
Hey, Vince. How are you?
Doing well, Jeannie. I'm sorry that I missed you before. What's on your mind?
Well, first of all, I wanted to say kudos to your daughter for winning gold in the backstroke, because that's a difficult stroke to learn and do
That's
properly.
her stroke. She is really good at that stroke, so I'm proud of her. She did a great job.
Wow, good for her. Excellent. Well, I grew up in Butler. I'm intimately familiar with that site. My dad was on the board of directors up there for many, many years. Yeah. And I have friends, tons of friends that still live up there and family. And the word is from them that there was no security even the night before, because a friend's friend, is always a friend's friend, took a prop up there, a piece of farm equipment, a combine. And he said he just drove right in. And he's telling everybody nobody stopped him. Nobody did any security checks on his piece of farm equipment. He just drove right in and drove out. And the next day, after the shooting, the police, the head of the police guy in Butler was on TV, and he was adamant. He was upset because the Secret Service was trying to blame them. Yes. And he said, we weren't responsible for this.
Jeannie,
so
when you say there's no security, and I know you're reporting this secondhand, so you may not know the answer to this, but he just means that you're able to drive in and out. I got that. Were there any physical signs that security had begun to be constructed? In other words, was there any sort of like fence or wall constructed, yet he was still able to get through because nobody was manning it? Do I understand that right?
Well, there's a permanent chain link fence around there because they have a lot of different events, and you have to pay to get in. So there's a permanent chain link fence where they have little stations. If it's hot or raining, somebody stands in there and takes your ticket or your money.
Right.
So he just drove right in. Nobody stopped him. He didn't say if anybody was there at the gate, but nobody hailed him over or anything.
So the Secret Service, it sounds like to me that the Secret Service just used the existing farm site, the gates, as their means of creating a barrier.
It sounds like it. Sounds like it.
And then the shooter ended up getting on a roof of a building that was outside of that fence.
Yes, and that's a pretty big area, and they could have positioned that, especially since it was a hot summer day. They could have reversed the stage where the sun wouldn't have been beating down. I don't see why they set it up that way. I know exactly how it was positioned. But, again, that's the only building that is there on that side of the road. And it just seems all too, what's the word I'm looking for? Just so coincidental that all these things happen.
I hear what you're saying. You're saying it's too perfect to be an accident, is what you're saying.
Too perfect. In fact, if you want my theory, I believe that the deal that was made with Biden is that they wouldn't blame this on him as coming from the top. I don't know.
Yeah, there's an old expression, never attribute to malice that which is adequately explained by stupidity. The Secret Service has a long history now of stupidity, especially this century, when it comes to a lot of these events. But I never rule out that malice may be a factor in any of the chaos we see in the world today. Jeannie, thank you. I appreciate the call and the perspective from Butler. You know what that very scene looks like. All right, hold on. More from you in just a moment. It's 5:52. All right. Let's see. Let's go to Dan in Stafford now, line 5. Dan. Oh, wait. Can we get him? Yeah, let's get Dan. Go ahead, Dan.
Yeah, real quick. The premise is so informative and entertaining. I want to know if we're going to have a second presidential debate.
A second presidential debate. It's a good question. We should have one. Because if we don't, the media is going to run with the line that, Trump was scared after they replaced the vegetable with Kamala Harris. She's just so good. No. Trump should get on that stage, and he should do exactly what he did to Hillary Clinton eviscerator. The great one, Mark Levin, up next.